Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Holly and I hope today's video finds you well wherever you are. We just had a big snowstorm here, so there's still a lot of white fluffy powder out. So the kids and I were out for a failed attempt at a fun snow day today, but we did get out and get some fresh air. So that's a parenting win. So wherever you are today, I pray that it finds you well and that you are staying warm. We are kind of a couple months past our last big mega family adventure. We went to Brazil. If you watched some of my other videos, you saw some of my packing videos as I was preparing for that. And now I've had some time to kind of marinate and think about what went right and what went wrong, and to give you some product reviews of some of the things that we brought with us, what I would consider useful and you should definitely look into, or something I would tell you after actually some experience that it was completely unnecessary or just wasted space in our suitcase. So again, without further ado, let's jump into our Brazil family vacation trip review. I made some notes and I put them on my phone, so if I'm glancing down, you'll know what I'm doing, just looking at my notes. So we'll start with the high points. I think that's always important because what's worse than someone sitting, vlogging and just complaining about their trip when they had the luxury and the privilege to be able to travel at all. Like, that always strikes me as a little bit arrogant. So I do have some negative things to say, but I want to start with the positive because this was always kind of something that we should, as parents, we should keep in mind when we are planning these trips. Like, things will go wrong, but what were the ultimate overarching goals and objectives of the trips? Were you able to accomplish those? And then, if your answer is to yes, then I think you can consider it a success, no matter how difficult it was in the meantime. So some of our best moments, I'll do our top 5, was really just getting to see my husband's culture through my kids' eyes. So I didn't know what to expect. They're pretty young. Sawyer's 3 and Vivian is 1. And this was our first time back to Dad's home country. First time for my husband and I to be back in 5 years. So it was a long overdue family reunion trip. All his family lived down there, his mom and dad and sisters and their families, and then his aunts, uncles, his grandfather. So our kid's great-grandfather is 105, but still going strong. So it was the first time he had been able to see any of those family members for about 5 years. And so just to see the kids kind of enter into that and see where Vovô and Vovozinha, where they live and what their life is like, and to interact more with their cousins, which they had not really had a chance to do, and even meet aunts and uncles that they had not had a chance to meet. So that was priceless. So if you have family living abroad and you haven't mustered up the courage to go and visit them, I understand it was not an easy trip, but that was definitely one of our high points, our high moments. And I would say it really was the purpose of the trip, and also what we felt was the most memorable part of the trip was just any of the interaction with our families. Along that line, making some new family memories. So, we did a Brazilian barbecue together. We had a couple little pool parties. My in-laws have a little plunge pool at their apartment. So we had a lot of just fun, interactive times together, watching things that you would take for granted if your family lived next door in the same town or even in the same state. Movie nights and ordering pizza and takeout, and going on double dates, and just hanging out, going over to their apartments and having dinner. Just these little family moments that are really precious. And so those were some of our highlights for sure. A third highlight would have been getting the kids kind of first time at the beach. Sawyer, when he was 18 months, we took him on a transatlantic Disney cruise, which was great. So he got to see the ocean, but we never managed to have a beach day in any of those, any of that trip. And Vivi had never seen the ocean or the beach. So kind of just seeing their expressions of awe, because it's quite amazing if you think about the first time you saw the ocean, just the vastness and the immenseness of it. And Sawyer loves to dig and play in the sand, like with sand boxes or sensory bins. And so it was like one giant sensory bend for him. And Vivi is fearless. I mean, she's like running into the water and getting knocked over and laughing. And so that will be a top memory for me for sure, is getting to see our kids experience the ocean and the beach. So that was one of our top 5 moments. The fourth top 5 would just be, for me personally, is just seeing how beautiful Brazil is. I've been one other time, and I'm just always taken aback by it. Where my husband is from, and the city is called Belo Horizonte. It's quite a big city, but it's in a hilly, kind of mountainous region, and so the rolling hills and the apartments and skyscrapers just kind of follow the contours of the mountains, and it's just beautiful. The vegetation is different, the flowers are different, it's a very tropical climate, so the things that grow there are different, the produce. I loved being able to fly into a new city. We flew Sao Paulo to Belo and the last time and this time as well, but when we went to the beach is in the northern part of Brazil, and so we flew into El Salvador, and it was so pretty. I think out of all the places I've ever flown into in my life, it was the prettiest. I mean, it's right there on the coast, so you can see the ocean. It's kind of a peninsula, the ocean on every side, and huge skyscrapers, and you're flying just, I mean, the sun glinting off the ocean water. I will remember that for a long time. I just thought it's just such a beautiful place, Brazil is, and the beaches were stunning. I knew they would be. I mean, who doesn't love a beach? Every beach is pretty, but they are world famous beaches, and I certainly saw why they are. So quite memorable, and probably it made my top 5. It's just the beauty of Brazil. And I think the last top 5 for us was the current exchange rate for the US dollar. So our dollar went so far this trip. I think I was paying a third of the price of what I would normally pay for everything. So we stocked up on, gifts for home, soaps, coffee, flip-flops, just souvenirs. Even our all-inclusive resort stay was much more affordable for us than it would have been in times past, or certainly if we had done a similar vacation here in the US, because the exchange rate was quite favorable for us with the US dollar. So that's something to consider too when you're planning a international trip, is to keep an eye on the exchange rate and see, am I going to be paying more for this because of the US dollar is weak, or vice versa. So for us, that was a real highlight. We went out to eat several times, and we always, are pretty conscious budgeters, but this time around, because the US dollar was so strong, we really were able to do more things than we normally would have done, and certainly bring home more souvenirs and do a little bit more shopping and eating out than we would have done, had it been more on equal footing with the dollar. So that was a highlight for us, and certainly something that will change with time. It just worked out great for this trip for us. So those are the top 5 best moments for us, and now we'll get into some of the top 5 worst moments. There were quite a few, but again, as I'm going through these, I don't want you to feel like I'm saying a lot of negative things about the opportunity to take our family on an international trip. I consider myself very fortunate and very blessed, and I'm grateful for the opportunity, but it doesn't mean that I have to just tell you it was all rainbows and sunshine, because traveling with a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old internationally, the way we did it was probably one of the hardest things I've done on my parenting journey so far, and really that's not an exaggeration. So the very first one I will tell you was the top 5 worst moments, was just the air travel car seat situation itself. Now I will tell you, we considered price more than convenience when we came to selecting our airplane ticket. So we wouldn't do that again. We would choose convenience, and we would pay more for it than we would choose a cheaper flight. So how it worked for us, we flew out of Baltimore into Toronto, from Toronto to Sao Paulo, from Sao Paulo to my husband's hometown in Belo Horizonte. It was over 24 hours of travel time with little kiddos, and it was horrific. It's about the worst. I mean, if I had hours, I could probably not tell you the whole story and do it justice on how difficult it was. But I will just say that the air travel itself is difficult with little kiddos, and we knew that, but we should have been more prepared and have paid a little bit more for a more direct flight. Constantly changing the kids in and out from flights. We decided to bring car seats for both of them because we thought they would sleep better in the car seat. And so because we brought car seats, we did not bring a stroller. So we're lugging car seats and toddlers through several airports. Because we flew into Toronto, we had to do customs in Toronto and then do customs again on entry into Brazil. So it was like customs ×2. So much walking through the airports, and they were just exhausted. I mean, they didn't eat any of the food in the airplane. We tried to find some good airport food for kids, but we were always kind of crunched with time and to make our connections and to get everything organized. So it just really was, they were miserable and we were miserable. So that's the first one. The second one I will say is, like I kind of already alluded to, was just the length of our layovers. On the way down, we had not enough time. So I'm so grateful I brought all those snacks that I talked about in my busy bag videos, because we ended up eating almost all of them just on the way down that 24-hour period. So the layovers were really tough, and then just like the configurations of the airports coming from international, like the international terminal, and then having to get to a domestic terminal, we were just unprepared for how much walking it would be without a stroller. So please let that be a lesson to you, and that's going to be one of my tips later on in the video, is bring the stroller, bring the stroller, bring the stroller, bring the stroller. You will need it. You will save you from like kids crawling on the floors of the bathrooms and, you know, climbing up escalators and not having a safe, comfy place to sleep or to rest, or just a place to strap them in and keep them contained for a few minutes. So pretty much air travel, I just listed, you know, I just gave it 2 slots on my worst moments, but it could have taken the top 10. The third worst moment that happened to us on our Brazil trip, while we were at the beach, we spent a week with my husband's family. And then we went, and some of his family traveled with us to the beach for a week, and then we came back for a final week to kind of break up, you know, 2 weeks visiting family. We stuck the beach trip in the middle. So while we were at the beach, Vivian began to get kind of sick. She was running a fever. She lost her appetite. And I couldn't really figure out what it was. And her fever got quite high. Sure enough, hand, foot, and mouth disease at the middle of an all-inclusive beach vacation. It was a disaster. As soon as we knew that our kids were sick, we were quarantining them back in the room. You know, we had brought Tylenol and ibuprofen, and so we're giving them medication. There's not much they can do for hand, foot, and mouth disease. It just kind of is a virus that needs to run its course. It's very, very prevalent in tropical countries year-round, unlike the States, which has kind of a season. It's year-round in Brazil, and so we ended up going to the resort doctor, and this is where I got really frustrated, because we went in just to make sure there was, again, what it was, you know, to confirm it was what I thought it was, which is hand, foot, and mouth disease. And the doctor there at the resort, you know, he's like, yeah, you're like the 8th person I've seen this week. So there's an active outbreak of hand, foot, and mouth at the resort, with all these communal pools and kiddie splash areas and kids clubs, and there is not a single sign letting families know this is going on and to be careful and to, you know, keep your kids potentially out of the kid areas. So I just feel like it was poor management from the resort, to be honest. So it took a couple of our beach days for sure, because with fevers that high and a rash, we didn't want to continue to, you know, take the kids out and about and just spread it more. So we just kind of huddled in our hotel room and had snacks and watched TV and tried to stay out of the sun. So it is what it is, but that was definitely one of our top 5 worst moments for our beach trip to Brazil. I would say the second thing that happened to us is once we got back to my husband's family's house and Vivian's rash started to heal, the fevers went away, their appetite was coming back. About a day before we were set to travel home, Vivian got sick again. There was nothing to be, it's like kind of like a common cold. There was really nothing that we could do for her other than manage her fever and try to keep her, you know, on fluids and things. She lost her appetite again. Final one I will mention is just the all-inclusive resort, our expectation of it versus our the reality of what we experienced. And I could do a whole video on that, but I'll just say, you know, if you've never done an all-inclusive before, or this would be your first time doing something like this, you know, try to be as prepared as you know how to be to understand what is available to you, what your options are, and kind of manage your expectations. If you're anything like my husband and I, you probably get quite excited about the idea of travel, and so you kind of fantasize about it and imagine what it'll be like, and then it's really difficult for anything, even a great trip, to match up to those expectations. So I would just say, like, our expectations were built up so much that reality really couldn't even satisfy that. So going into it next time, I would have a more realistic expectation, and I would kind of manage my expectations and let it unfold more naturally, as opposed to, you know, trying to, you know, imagine and plan every moment from what I can find on the website or what I can find, you know, on social media about a resort or about a place. So just, you know, to kind of be aware of that when you're planning a vacation, and understand that, you know, there are inherent issues with every, you know, facility, every place, every trip, and that's going to be something you're just going to have to roll with as a parent. So, all right, that was my top 5 worst moments. Now let's move on to some good things again, because I promised you a review of some of the items in my busy bag, and I will tell you, because of how difficult our trip went, I didn't even get a chance to interact with probably half of the things that we had brought in our busy bag. So I had definitely brought enough selection, probably too much of a selection. So that's something to consider too if you've got an international flight. Maybe less is more, like some tried and true favorite things might be better than a whole range of brand new you know, products. Some things we did end up using that hit my top 5 is all the snacks. I mean, I brought goldfish, I brought little cereal bars, we brought, you know, fruit snacks. I would say I under prepared for the snacks because I wasn't prepared for how how terrible the plain food was, and how few options, like kid-friendly options, we were finding in international airports for food. So in hindsight, I would have brought a significant amount of more like additional snacks than what I actually brought. So if you've got picky eaters in your party, or you've got tight connections and you won't have time to kind of explore the airport and find something good for you and your family, definitely bring kid snack. For us, they were our most utilized item, and honestly, for the return flight, we had used up so many of those snacks that we had a very small kind of reserve of US kid food snacks, and we were not able to find similar items at the Brazilian markets. So that's just something to keep in mind. Another best kid product for our kids were their board books. I think I showed you in the busy bag videos, they each had a special board book. This is Vivian's. I wasn't able to bring Sawyer's because he's taking a nap right now and he is sleeping with his board book. So that should tell you how much he loved it. So these books got a ton of use and continue to get a ton of use. They were easy enough to like stick in the seat back pocket in front of us, which made it easy to grab again and again. And they loved them. Sawyer's, it has been, as I predicted, it has been one of his favorite toys slash activities, and it's a couple months past the trip and it's still a favorite. It stays in bed with him. He brings it, you know, everywhere he goes. So those board books, they were $7 or $8 a piece. I would definitely consider buying a brand new kind of colorful interactive board book for every trip, because I think it bought us the most peace out of anything in our busy bag, to be honest. Some other wins for the kid category, and I didn't even show these. I don't know why. I didn't even show these on the busy bag, I guess because it technically isn't a busy bag item, but this is something I would highly recommend for air travel with kids. We got these, they're called little gadgets. headphones for kiddos. We got them on Amazon. These were the blue ones. You can see from the picture they've got a really thick, cushy ear cuff. They're adjustable. They limit the volume so the kids can't turn them up really loud and damage their little ears. And they are very durable. They fold up very compact into a little like sack, a little slip sack. And Sawyer watched a lot of more videos than I thought he would. I had not really considered that international flights, long haul flights, of course, would all have seat back, you know, little monitors. So thankfully, I brought our DVD player. Thankfully, I didn't have to pull that out. All of our flights, the long ones, had, you know, little video monitors, and he was able to choose Disney Channel shows and movies and things like that, and it kept him quite entertained. And the headphones were a godsend. I did not think Vivian would need it because she doesn't watch a lot of movies, and I didn't buy one for her. So we were passing this one back and forth, my husband and I, to, you know, to try to accommodate both kids. And so that was a win for Sawyer. And I will definitely, next time we do a long flight, I will be buying a second pair for Vivian. It says for ages 3 up, and she's just 1, but you know, it was a little big on her, but still super comfy and worth its weight. So I would do that again. For sure. They gave them complimentary headphones, and they just don't work for kids. Even the kid ones, they're like the ones we had in the 80s, you know, really small and flimsy plastic, and you know, Vivian just wouldn't leave them on. So kid headphones for sure. The Big Apple, I don't know if you remember this from the Busy Bag for Vivian. It's that Montessori threading toy. It worked really well for Vivi. She really enjoyed it, and she's kind of a hard age. It's this little tiny inchworm and a large plastic apple. There are wooden ones, but this one is plastic, and you know, she just would thread it, and she could make patterns and undo it. And my husband was with her for the most part of the trip out, and he talked about this apple several times, how much she enjoyed it and how fun it was for her. And so that was definitely a win. And all right, the final top five kid product that we got the most use out of on this trip was those crazy little Matchbox cars. I think I told you in Sawyer's video that I had a few of those that I'd gotten in a pack, and I had wrapped them in tissue and stuck them in his Busy Bag so he could unwrap them from time to time. They were wonderful. He enjoyed them so much. He was able to play with them, you know, along the seat, along the seat itself, along the arms of the seat, along the tray table. Now, of course, since I did the best, I have to move on to the worst, because we brought some duds for sure, and spent some money on some things that we can't, you know, we really did not use at all. So I mentioned earlier in the video that we did not bring a stroller because we brought our car seats. Now, we weren't, you know, we were not foolish enough to think that we could just carry our car seats and our kids through airports. We had researched, and we had found on Amazon a car seat carrier, almost kind of like a car seat trolley. And let me show it to you. It looks kind of like this. It's on wheels, as you can see. It's got a nice flat base, and then it's got this, you know, telescopic handle that opens. So the idea is that you set the car seat here. It comes with a sturdy, like an airport buckle, that you buckle the car seat to the you know, base here, and then you tilt it and you just wheel your kids around. Well, wrong. It works so badly, at least for the car seats we have. It potentially could work for like the infant car seats or like the bucket car seats, something really, you know, more small and compact. But for the bigger transition car seats, the toddler versions, they're just too big. They're just too big. One of them actually bent the frame. They kept falling off, so you can see it's just hard plastic, and they don't fit into these grooves. So the grooves were just decoration as far as we were concerned. So they're just sitting flat on this, and they're heavy. You know, our kids are 30 pounds, and so you take a corner and the whole car seat just slides off. So here we are, like literally dumping our kids throughout the airport as we're like running around trying to catch our connections. They are, I will list all these products I've been mentioning on Amazon. But this one is a definite do not buy. It was a complete waste of money. I think it was $30 each, and we might have got them on sale. So if you've paid full price for them, it would be even worse. But they were a definite no for us. The other thing, you know, that I would say, we have a lovely car seat, and I told you that we brought all of our car seats with us. We've got great high quality car seats for the kids, the toddler ones that they'll grow into and be able to use, you know, for hopefully several more years to come. It kind of hits our list because, not because the product itself is bad, but because it was just a bad idea, which was we brought a car seat for both our kiddos. Sawyer's especially is a transition car seat for, you know, when they're getting to be taller and bigger, and it's huge and so bulky. It really, honestly, genuinely, even though it says that you can bring it on an airplane, and sometimes, you know, FAA really even recommends you bringing a car seat for kids, it really was almost too big for the airplane seats. So it was a disaster, and honestly, he would have been more comfortable, and he was on the return flight because we just gate checked his car seat, and we ended up not using it for the 3-year-old. So definitely have a game plan for how you plan to ride in an airplane with your kiddos. I liked the car seat for Vivian. I think because she was just 1, so she would have been a lap child, so she had her own seat, and when they're that little and they have their own seat, they have to have a car seat or some type of restraining device. So for her, it was it was a no-brainer. We had to do it. But for our 3-year-old, we thought, oh, you know, he sleeps well in his car seat in the car, maybe it'll be better for him. No, it was a disaster. And on the way back, we just gate checked it the whole way, and actually we didn't gate check it, we checked it with checked baggage, and he slept much better because he could curl up. He's so small, he could curl up on the seat and snuggle against my husband and I, and had a lot more breathing space and stretch his legs when he wanted, and you know, so it just worked better for the older kiddo to not have a car seat. But again, depending on the age of your child, and you know, if you want to buy your bigger toddler who's not, you know, quite 2, if you want to buy them their own seat, just be aware that you will have to bring your car seat on the plane, and so you will need a way to carry it or transport it, but I certainly don't recommend that product. So, all right, moving on. Another worst kid products, I mentioned snacks and a lot of snacks, but I'll also tell you what I said earlier, familiar is good. I tried a couple new snacks. I thought, oh, this will be novel, this will be different, this will be good for them to keep them stimulated, and maybe it would be for your kid, but my kids are not very adventurous when it comes to eating, and so all that new snacks that I bought were an absolute no, and so they ended up just taking space in my carry-on, just taking space in our luggage. All right, moving on from snacks, I will tell you, at least for our family, we brought some life preservers and some water toys, and you know, a big inflatable, if you saw my beach bag review, a big inflatable inner tube. It was a great idea. I suppose some families might have gotten a lot of use out of it, but we got 0 use out of it. I guess Vivian's life preserver got used the most, but my father-in-law, as I mentioned, they have a little plunge pool. He went ahead and drained it a bit, so it was more my my son's level, so he could actually, you know, if he kind of stretched his little tippy toes, he could actually touch, and that was great for his confidence. And with, you know, just a couple of times in the pool, he was ready to ditch it, and I was comfortable enough to do that. I mean, obviously under close supervision, but I was comfortable enough to let him ditch his life preserver. So that took up a ton. I mean, those things are so bulky, and I had brought 2 and a huge inner tube. And the final thing I'll mention, is kind of like a worst kids product, or something that we just didn't plan well, is we decided, for so many people say, you know, don't take up space in your suitcase, you know, just buy diapers in country. And I thought, you know, that's smart. I'm an overpacker, so anytime someone tells me, you know, really don't need to bring anything, I'm usually like, I should probably listen to them. And this is the case, the one case where I would say don't listen to them. So in this case, I will tell you, you know, depending on where you're going abroad, I would bring diapers, especially if your kids are prone to sensitive skin and rashes and things like mine. Having a familiar diaper, a tried and true diaper, a powerful, can withstand a lot of abuse diaper, it is really important, especially for those travel days. All right, so we've done top best moments, we've done top worst moments. We've done top best kid products, and we've done worst kid products. So this last category is just 5 of our best tips after a 3-week travel abroad trip with our family. Here's our, our wisdom that we're passing on to you in hopes that you do not repeat our same mistakes. The first one, as I kind of already mentioned, is minimize those connections and layovers. We would have paid probably twice what we paid if we had had a direct flight or only one connection as opposed to all those different connections. So really do your homework. Choose the airplane travel day that's going to work best for your family. Choose an arrival time and a departure time. Carefully plan what cities you're going to be flying into, because then you can do some research on their airport and try to have a better game plan in place. I do not recommend doing customs twice. I do not recommend flying from the US to Canada and then another country after that. That just added stress to our trip. So really carefully consider those connections and those layovers, and at all opportunity minimize those if possible. A second tip is, if you're not able to minimize those, then look into an airport hotel, because the first going down went so badly. On our return flight, we're like, nope, we're not doing that again. We have a long layover. I think it was an 8 or 9 hour layover in São Paulo before flying on to Toronto, and we're like, we cannot entertain the kids for 9 hours in an airport. So my father-in-law was the one that actually suggested it. He said, there is an airport hotel that you do not have to leave the airport. So my husband looked into it. Sure enough, we went ahead and booked one night, even though we weren't there for a whole night. We were just there for about 7 hours. It was fantastic. We would do that again and again and again. Now I realize, blowing $100 may not be feasible for some families, and that's fine. But if it's feasible for your family, it's something to certainly consider. Because what we did was we brought a change of clothes for everyone. We got takeout and went back to the room. We all showered. We all ate. We had them bring in a crib for Vivian, and they had bunk beds for our little guy. It was a family suite of some kind. And we turned out all the lights, pulled the dark out curtains, and we all got a couple hours of rest and quiet and a clean space. The kids could roam around after nap times. We let them watch TV. We let them play in the room. I kind of like reorganized our our carry-ons, and like I said, we had food and snacks, and so it was so peaceful and so relaxing, and a much better way to spend a long layover at an airport than trying to corral 2 toddlers through a dirty, crowded, noisy airport. So if that's an option for you, really look into it. I highly recommend it. If that ever happens to us again, it will be a no-brainer. If we have the budget for it, we will be doing that tip again. The third tip I have for you is to bring a stroller. Again, I'm sure most parents out there are like, duh, who is this woman who doesn't bring a stroller? But I just thought, those car seat carriers are going to work so great, and our kids will be able to walk and stretch their legs, and there are so many reasons why you need a stroller. Now, we did have a stroller in country because my sister-in-law was sweet enough to share hers with us, and that was part of the reason we thought we wouldn't need one in the airport. But you need a stroller in the airport. Bring your stroller. You're welcome. All right, the fourth tip is bring extra clothes. Bring extra clothes into your carry-on. Like I said, Vivian got sick on the flights home several times, and by the end of it, like, none of us had, I had brought a change of clothes for her, and I had brought a change of clothes for my son. I had not considered bringing a change of clothes for my husband and I had not considered bringing multiple changes of clothes for our kids. But a blowout is all it takes, and that outfit's trashed. She got sick several times, and we were all sour, and so I had brought changes of clothes, like I said, for the kids, but not for my husband and I. And moving forward, everyone would have a couple outfits stashed away in the carry-on for emergencies, because with kids, I'm learning, you really need to prepare for the emergencies, because it's likely gonna happen for you. And with that same kind of vein, my fifth and final tip for travel tips with kids is to divide, you know, clothes and stuff between suitcases. And really what made me think of this is on our flight to the beach, one of our suitcases went missing. Someone had taken it by mistake thinking it was theirs. And so immediately we'd start to kind of like, okay, how are we going to get it back? And the airline is trying to call the person whose bag is still here, assuming that it's because they took our bag, and trying to track this person down. And in my head, I'm like peeking in all the other bags to see which bag went missing. Well, it was the kid's bag. So again, my husband and I could maybe make do, you know, a day or two without our stuff. But, you know, Vivian's bottles, their blankets, which they have to sleep, diapers, all these things that you really have to have was now missing. And I had seen this tip in other places, but, you know, you don't put all of kid A's clothes in one suitcase. You kind of spread it out. So if a suitcase does go missing, kid A has something to wear, and you know that isn't in the other suitcases. And so I kind of just brushed it off because I've never had missing luggage before. But the second I realized that I had put in all of the kids' clothes and all of their diapers and all of their pajamas and, you know, kid paraphernalia into one suitcase, and that was now the one missing, I was like, oh, well, that was a good tip. I should have paid attention. So that is a good tip. You should pay attention and put some things into other suitcases. So if something does go missing, at least there are a few things for them to wear, you know, or a few, you know, a stack of diapers in every suitcase, so you're not desperate and buying, you know, $10 diapers for a, you know, a small pack at the airport. Thankfully, ours had a happy ending to the story. The lady was reached from the airline, and she had not gotten too far out of the city, and it was a work suitcase that she had left behind, so she was eager to come back and make the exchange. Yeah, that's my fifth and final tip for you. Again, I hope that you didn't hear all of these negative experiences and think, wow, you know, she's very ungrateful for her family trip, or, you know, I'm never going to travel with my kids. What a horrible experience that sounds like. It was tough. It was challenging. My husband and I have agreed that we will kind of not do big flight trips for a little bit, let the kids get a little older and kind of let us build our confidence back up before we try it again, because it was pretty rough. But I do hope that some of this has been useful for you if you're planning an extensive air travel trip with the kiddos, or maybe going to be doing a family international trip sometime in the next few months. Some things to consider. Please check out those busy bag videos if you hadn't watched them already. They should give you a lot of ideas, a lot of different ideas of things to bring. I also did one for our a beach bag trip, so if you're going to be doing, you know, a Florida trip or a lake trip or anywhere where there's going to be sun, sand, and water, check that one out as well. Some of the products I talked about here will be discussed further in those videos. And as always, I really appreciate you spending some time with me. It means a lot to me that you would take the time out of your day to watch my videos. I would so appreciate if you were able to like or subscribe, because I am going to be releasing more and more content with our upcoming family vacations and just life in general with our crazy crew. And I would certainly love for you to come along for the adventure. So please, if you have time, like and subscribe to my channel, and we will see you next time. Take care.